Hi, I'm Brian Sparks, Senior Editor of Greenhouse Grower Magazine, and I'm joined today by Matt Micah and Craig Regabrugge with American Hort, and we are here to talk about all things Impact Washington, which is coming up September 18th through the 20th in our nation's capital. Welcome, Matt and Craig.
Thanks, Brian.
So if you guys could first talk about just really what is Impact Washington and why is it such an important event for this industry?
Yeah, Brian, I'll go first here and Craig can add in. I am first new to the team here. I'm the Vice President of Government Affairs Advocacy for American Hort. Been in the industry for over 20 years, but for folks and growers and nursery owners and greenhouse folks, this is the opportunity to come to Washington, D.C. and meet with your senators and representatives and their staff and tell them about your business, what's going on. It's a 3-day event. We will prep people with talking points, with one-pagers. All the meetings will be set up. We'll have breakfast, lunch, and dinners. We'll have transportation. But we have such a new and young Congress in DC right now. And plus with COVID, a lot of members and their staff just haven't been together in what we would call normal government. So this is the opportunity to come in, tell your story, educate. We will have 3 or 4 top issues, and we'll have that all set for folks that are coming to attend. Craig, do you want anything to that?
I think you've covered it well. We'll dive a little bit more deeply into some of the specific issues that we'll cover in the next few minutes, I'm sure.
Yeah, and exactly. And before we get to that, can you maybe talk about some of the key speakers who are going to be a part of this year's program?
Yeah, so we've got Governor Hogan from Maryland, who, as folks know, was Republican governor in a very blue state in Maryland and had about an 80% approval rating by the end of his term. USDA Secretary Vilsack has been invited. If he's not able to attend, we'll either have a deputy or an assistant secretary able to be there. Congressman Newhouse from Washington, Congressman Duarte from California, Congressman Costa from California, Senator Bennett, Senator Bozeman from Arkansas, who's a ranking member on the Senate Ag, and then Chairman G.T. Thompson, the House Ag Committee, has been invited. And one other one, there's many more, but Congressman Sam Graves from Missouri, he's the chair of Transportation and Infrastructure, which is a very important committee to our members, especially when you're talking about trucking, rail, interwaterways, and ports and trade. I mean, these are all major issues, but all these folks have been invited. And as you can guess, being August recess, a lot of people around the country visiting, and we're going to be locking this down here in the next couple of weeks. And anybody who's been to DC before, you know, we could have a schedule, but it could all change the day of with votes and meetings and whatnot. And if you haven't been, we encourage people to come because this is an opportunity to see how your nation's capital works, how it's all put together. And don't be afraid or alarmed if you're meeting in the hallway or outside of a building, but you just go with the flow because members of Congress and staff are an ever-moving schedule. And it's just something we learn to do, and you just go with it as it comes before you.
I know I've attended in the past, and I do like that, the fact that, as you said, Matt, sometimes you're sitting in, in somebody's office, sometimes you have to go, sit in the hallway, but regardless, you can do whatever you can to make the most of that conversation and really educate whoever you're talking to about the industry. You both mentioned some of the key issues.
I was just going to add, on the speakers, this is probably self-evident, but we reach out to folks who are in unique leadership positions with respect to our issues or have unusual and meaningful perspectives to bring. And like Congressman John Duarte, for example, he is a lifelong nursery grower from the Central Valley of California. So he's one of our people, so to speak, and won his election by a couple of hundred votes in an extremely difficult district that had sort of I think the generic Democratic advantage in the district was 11 or 12%. And so anyway, he's brought, fresh ideas and leadership and so forth. So he's one of the people we're going to be really excited to hear from.
Now, you both mentioned some of the key issues, and I know, American Hort comes into this with a pretty long list of priorities, but can you maybe just zero in on just a few of the top issues that you're really going to be emphasizing to members who come and talk to their congressional leaders this year?
We always hear from folks, labor and immigration, H-2A, H-2B, but H-2A is just a huge issue and can't express that enough. So that conversation is going to be huge. Also, this is the Farm Bill year, 2023, the Farm Bill, 2018 Farm Bill will run out on September 30th. So it's reauthorization. Folks have probably seen the House and Senate Ag committees are meeting right now. They have what are called field hearings back in their states and their districts. So we will talk about Farm Bill priorities and why it's important to growers. Also, USDA funding, the appropriations have to be renewed September 30th. So we have some key provisions in different appropriations committees, including Homeland Security and Agriculture. And then just your breadth of other issues, which would include transportation, which is why Chairman Graves is so important to have that meeting with him. Tax, trade, small business, all of our folks are small business owners. So those things are very important. Just on the Farm Bill real quick, just so people know, we have a really new and young Congress. And just to put into perspective, in the House, there's 435 members. Over 200 of those members are new in the last 5 years. So they haven't voted on the Farm Bill. There are 54 members of the House, Republicans and Democrat, House Ag Committee, excuse me. Of those, each one of those members has a staffer that handles agriculture. There are only 7 staffers of those 54 that have actually done a Farm Bill before. So this is the opportunity for people to come in, our members, to talk with their members of Congress and their staff, which is sometimes more important than members, and educate them on what they're doing, how their facility works, what the problems are, what the budget is, how hard it is to hire people, and what they're looking for in the next year to 3. But Craig, I know you've been in depth on some of these more issues. I'll let you follow up with the in-depth here.
Yeah, and I would imagine that a lot of our folks, sort of shrug their shoulders and say, Farm Bill, isn't that about corn and soybeans and pigs and hogs and cattle? And, and the reality is, for about the last 15 years, the Farm Bill has been increasingly important and impactful for horticulture. There is actually a special horticulture title in the Farm Bill, and a number of the programs that are part of that title, or even in other parts of the Farm Bill, have really become the go-to place. So the Specialty Crop Research Initiative, major projects going on greenhouse lighting and technology and other areas. There's a program called the Plant Pest and Disease Prevention or Management and Disaster Prevention Program that focuses on pest and disease. This area has been, this source of funding has been our go-to for problems like downy mildews, Ralstonia, probably going forward, the emerging issue of thrips parvispinus. So really the leveraging Farm Bill resources has become really critically important to us. One other thing I'll mention, in the last Farm Bill, Chairwoman Debbie Stabenow in the Senate included a provision that directed USDA to do a feasibility study on a new greenhouse risk management tool, a greenhouse crop insurance program that would cover regulated pests and diseases as the perils. And so that, the whole impetus for this was the Ralstonia crisis from 20 years ago that, to be quite candid, put some greenhouse operations on the ropes and even out of business. And so this safety net program, it is coming together. We don't know how well it's going to work, but it's coming together. And we actually have, right on the front end of Impact Washington, we've arranged a special briefing where the people who have been developing the program will sit down with the growers on Monday afternoon, just prior to our opening reception, and walk folks through what it's looking like and which states it's going to be piloted in. And so we've got people that are signing up for that special opportunity as well.
Okay. We know that this is a unique event for this industry. It's not a conference where somebody goes to a trade show or learns about how to control a pest or new varieties. Can you talk about why an event like this is important, especially for the growers in this industry, why it's invaluable for them to be participating in an event like this?
Yeah, I would say, folks in horticulture and the green industry know, especially in agriculture, less than 2% of the American public is involved in ag or actually know where products are from and how they're grown. And that's the same for our elected officials and staff. They just don't have the background in it. So coming to DC, sitting down with folks for these, 30-minute meetings and explaining your story, what's happening. And if you're first generation or third or fifth, that's very important. The other thing is just getting to know your elected official and staff. So when something does come up, they reach out, they would reach out to Craig and I, but more importantly, they want to know from folks back home in their district and state, like, how does this bill, how does this rule, how does this regulation affect you and your family and your farm and your facility? And that's what's key here. In this Congress, and this new Congress that started in January of this year, there are 81 new members of the House and Senate. In the Senate, there are 7 senators. 3 of those senators served in the House. Of the 74 members, new members in the House, 70 are Republican and 34 are Democrat. 12 of those have never served at the state and local level, which is very new. Usually most people when they come into Congress have served at a county or city or state government. 18 of those members are 30 years or younger. We have the youngest Congress in 100 years, about 51 years old. So just a lot of education. And that's kind of the most important thing, especially with COVID, when DC was shut down for 2 years. We have the ability here to tell people their story, what's going on back home on their farm and their facility, and just explain to folks how the products are made, how they're grown, why it's important, and all the different abilities and tools we need, and just the whole supply chain to get that to explain to our elected officials and staff.
Yeah.
I think as well, bringing it to a really personal level, what's in it for me and why should I take the time and spend the money and so forth. Two things really happen in this event. One is folks are going up to Capitol Hill with their peers. They're listening and learning from each other. They're improving their own ability to communicate around these issues. And I mean, they learn a lot from each other. And that's an intangible thing that people always report back. But also in forging those working relationships with congressional staff and the members themselves, when the individual business has a problem, like for example, if a greenhouse is using H2A and their visa petition is being slow walked at U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, USCIS is like a black box. And if you're being slow walked, if you're stuck there, how do you deal with it? Well, unfortunately, the best way to deal with it is to have your member of Congress intervene. Yeah. And so by building those relationships, folks know who to call and there's an established rapport. And so even at the individual business level, troubleshooting on some of these issues, there's no better way than to have those established relationships. And this is the opportunity to do it.
Well, and also, Craig, I'm thinking at your State of the Industry presentation during Cultivate last month, you mentioned the fact that this is a pretty challenging political environment right now. And that's maybe putting it kindly. There's so many other issues that are going on right now that, how do you kind of navigate through those so you can focus in on, while you've got all these other external factors kind of driving the direction on Capitol Hill today? How can you really make an impact with these specific issues that you want to kind of nail home?
I mean, I think I would just say, the many of the folks who are in the news every day have gotten elected because they want to stand up on a pedestal and shout. They're not necessarily in Washington to solve problems, but the rank and file, still the majority of folks who are elected to public office, I believe, are largely there for the right reasons. And they want to understand what their constituents, what the people who are running businesses and making payrolls and paying taxes and supporting their own local economies. They want to know what's going on and they want to try to help improve things. And so I really think, as hard as it is, folks need to set aside the it's all broken, nothing's working, and engage, because at the end of the day, Congress will ultimately, as messy as it might be between here and there, they're going to fund the federal government. We're going to, hopefully have funding for programs like the Floriculture and Nursery Research Initiative, some of these key Farm Bill programs. And, if we're not making our voices heard about how important these things are, it's easier for them to fall away. Yeah. So I encourage people, give it a try, come on and experience it. And I think you'll find it to be pretty rewarding.
Yeah, Brian, the thing I'd add to that is, Craig and I have been doing this for a long time. We won't get to how many years, but what you don't hear about is all the things that actually get done because they're not cool, they're not sexy. What you see on your Fox News and your MSNBC and CNBC and on social media is things that Craig had mentioned that people like to talk about to get people edged and get them upset, to get them going. That's why all of our issues that we're going to bring up and talk with our folks and present are in bills like appropriations and the Farm Bill and things that are must get done. So we have to make sure that we have those talking points, people hear about it and how it implements them. But in DC, there is so much that gets done every day and every week. We just don't hear about it because it's just not cool. It's not good for news. It's not good for our 24 hours news cycle.
So then tied into Impact Washington, you also have the Plant Political Action Committee. Can you guys talk about, what that is, why it's important, and how somebody can support it?
Yeah, I can jump in first just because I've got the trajectory of a lot of history. We as an industry I mean, I'll be candid, our real strength in the political process isn't due to the amount of money we throw around. It is really due to the fact that we are, as an industry, authentic. We have men and women who are running businesses, who are employing people, and as I said, making payroll, paying taxes. They're bedrock to these local economies all over the country. So our real strength is in our grassroots and the fact that we're just about everywhere. We are a significant presence in agriculture and the downstream economy in nearly every state around the country. So our grassroots is really our strength. But at the end of the day, political campaigns are expensive to run, and the Political Action Committee resources give us access to lawmakers and helps to ensure that the people who have stepped forward to champion our issues have the financial support that they need to be able to fight to be reelected. And so it plays a really, really critical role. And what we've done in the past and expect will happen this year is that people who have contributed at a modest, but at a certain threshold level to our PAC will be invited to a special dinner that takes place on Tuesday night. We always have a guest of honor, an elected official, a member of Congress who sits with us and shares their perspectives. That'll happen again this year. So great opportunity for folks. And it's important to understand if somebody hasn't helped to support our plant PAC, our Political Action Committee, they need to first give us their prior approval to be asked to make a donation, and then they can go ahead and make a donation. All that can be done on our website at AmericanHort.org under advocacy, and then under take action, advocacy, take action. And there's a link to Plant PAC, and the forms can be done online. It's really, really very simple. Matt, what would you add?
Yeah, the only thing I'd add is it's just another opportunity to meet with elected officials. Sometimes it's a much more relaxed atmosphere. They're much more open because, Brian, as you know, coming to DC and doing these before, you've got 15 to 20 minutes, sometimes 30, and they're always looking to the next meeting. And one thing to mention is, just because a member of Congress is on their phone or staffers doesn't mean they're not paying attention. There's just so much going on. There just isn't enough time in the day. But these events related to the PAC, the Political Action Committee, Plant PAC, is a great opportunity to do stuff outside of the traditional office, setting, and just have an honest one-on-one conversation. And you get to know the elected official just a little bit more. And as Craig mentioned, campaigns are getting more and more expensive. A lot of that reason is due to media and how expensive it is to run a TV ad and social media and print. And as we all know, it takes roughly 7 times to get to a elector, a voter, to make sure they know an issue. So it just costs a lot of money to run a campaign.
Yeah. I know in a past life, I used to spend a lot of time on Capitol Hill because I got to see firsthand just how many different directions people are pulled in. So anytime you have a chance to have those more intimate conversations, it's certainly valuable. As we start to wind down here a little bit, let's just talk about, if somebody wants to come to Impact Washington, what do they need to know? How do they register? And I know that there's also a cutoff date for hotels that should be mentioned as well.
The biggest thing here is that we have online. You go to AmericanHort.org, and then you go to events, and it's Impact Washington, the summit. Click on there, has everything. We have our tentative schedule that will continue to change, as we mentioned earlier on. And then Brian did mention we're trying to lock down, just because it's DC and hotels. August 25th is to get that rate, but everything is on there. Every question, if people have further questions, they can reach out to Craig or I about what's going on. We will have, again, all of the documents, all of the meetings set up. So if you are from, Michigan or South Carolina or Washington or California, we are setting up all those meetings to meet with your elected officials where you're from, where your facilities are, and those senators. And again, it's a 3-day opportunity. Come in Monday night. As Craig mentioned, we're having an earlier meeting with some folks on some key issues. We'll have a reception. Tuesday morning, we'll go through our issues. We'll have some key speakers. Tuesday afternoon, we'll head to the Senate, do those meetings. We'll then have a reception at Capitol Hill Club. And for folks that want to be part of the PAC and would like to donate in, we'll have a dinner for those people that can meet that. And then same thing, Wednesday morning, we'll have another program with folks coming to speak to us, mainly from the House and Senate side, and key staffers from committees, and then go to the House for meetings late to early morning to early afternoon. Craig, want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I'd just say for folks who haven't done this before, it's probably seems a little bit intimidating. And the reassurance we would offer is, first of all, you're not likely to be doing it alone. We always have a cadre of experienced folks for whom this is a never miss event, and they're already registered. They're going to be here. And so normally we've got small groups moving together on the Hill, so that, you know, rarely does somebody have to go into a meeting alone. And in the event that happens, we'll make sure that we're deploying our staff resources like Matt and myself to join. If anybody is actually traveling alone, we'll try to make sure that you've got some company with you if this is your first time doing it. And you know, the people who come for the first time walk away. I'm thinking about Denise Godfrey out in California at Olive Hill Greenhouses. I mean, she was just eyes wide open about the experience she had, and enthusiastic, and is coming back again this year. So for folks who haven't done it before, we're doing all the prep to make your life easy on the front end, and the experience on site will properly prepare you. And you'll most likely be working in a team of folks, some of whom have done this before and know exactly how it works. So a great experience for the first timers.
And I can also say, as a past attendee, you know, there's a very energetic feeling that comes out of you're walking from one congressional office to another, and you really do feel like you're making a difference and your voice is being heard. So that's always exciting. I used to come back from it just, you know, thinking, this is going to make a difference for the industry. So that's great.
Yeah, Brian, you mentioned something very important. There's a lot of walking, a lot of steps, and you're standing. So I will tell anybody, wear comfortable shoes. Do not wear new shoes. Women do not need to wear heels. I know you want to look the best, but if you are not in comfortable shoes, because we will be going from 7 a.m. to possibly 7 p.m. on Tuesday, and very similar on Wednesday. So if your feet are not taken care of and you're not comfortable and you're not rested, you will be feeling it when you leave DC on Wednesday afternoon.
And wear your Fitbit or your smartwatch so you get the credit.
Yes.
That's right. Absolutely. Well, then finally, you know, if somebody cannot attend Impact Washington, what else can they do to work with American Hort to tell the story of horticulture from their own perspective?
Yeah, there's some great opportunities there. You know, one, just reach out to your local officials. Every member of Congress, every senator has a local office. Get to know those people. They will have a field rep usually that is in the agricultural world. Get to know that staffer. Two, invite them out to your facility. Have them come out. This is the August recess. 6 weeks here in DC, where members of Congress and senators go home and they work in their district and work in their state, and they do visits. And specifically, being a farm bill year, a lot of folks are visiting everything related to agriculture and horticulture. So now is the time to do that. And then lastly, if anybody has any questions, they can reach out to Craig and I, and we will, you know, help you put together an email, a letter. If you want to call somebody, we can help set that call up. You know, for members of American Hort, this is why we're here. As I mentioned, I've been doing this over 25 years here in DC and in the state level. So have the experience. We know these folks, but they hear from Craig and I all the time. They need to hear from the people on the ground, the people back home, the people that are growing, the people that are in the green industry and horticulture, because that's what's most important. The members, you all, are the ones that have to tell your story. If we don't tell our story, then elected officials are just going to vote and do things without the experience, because as I mentioned before, we have less and less elected officials that actually know what we do in agriculture and how we grow things and what's specific to the industry.
Awesome. Well, Matt, Craig, thank you very much for joining us today. And anybody who wants more information can go to AmericanHort.org to learn about both Impact Washington and other events and other programs that American Hort puts together. Again, thank you both for joining us today.
Thanks to you, Brian. We appreciate the partnership.
Absolutely.